friends, welcome to our lecture today, which is titled Cinema and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. As all of us are aware that the kind of contribution which Dr. B.R. Ambedkar made to the Indian Constitution as the chairman of the drafting committee, and for the ideals which he stood all through his life in the framework of the ideas of social justice, and the kind of contribution which he made through writings as well, through the various political parties to which he was affiliated, which he founded, the kind of contribution he made to the amelioration of the various sections of the society. So, all this is very well documented in various books, articles, and many newspapers and media channels. They have also, in a way, reported it. But at the same time, we see that how Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was not, in a way, portrayed in films for a very long period of time, and we find that later when his portrayal or depiction in films started, then we find that his ideas they have been shown in the framework of the way he tried to change the status of the diverse sections of the society, those who were at the lower rungs of the society. And we find that many times he has not been depicted directly in the films, but his ideas or his memory, which has also been used in that framework where all these ideas have been talked about. So, when we find that how from the socio-political point of view, the contribution of Dr. Ambedkar cannot be denied in the framework of the Indian society and in the framework of the Constitution, which has a great imprint of his ideas and thoughts. And we also see that how a number of auteurs or filmmakers, they have also made films, the way they have tried to, in a way, portray his persona on celluloid. And at the same time, we find that his ideas about Buddhism or the ideas of social justice, they have also been portrayed in some of the films. So, today we will try to, in a way, examine some of these films which have tried to talk about the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar, and at the same time we also realize that how cinema definitely plays an important role in terms of disseminating various ideas. And when people they see these kinds of films where the ideas of social justice, where the kind of struggle which is there in the society, that is being reflected, and how education definitely plays an important role in that sense, that how Dr. Ambedkar was well educated, and through his education he was able to make some kind of a mark in the society, and the kind of fighting spirit which was also exhibited by him. So, we see that various kinds of films, not only Hindi cinema but other films in different languages, they have also tried to showcase the struggles and victory of Dr. Ambedkar in the pursuit of the various objectives which he had in his mind. And we also see that how he also became an inspiration for so many generations. The later generations, they could get inspired by watching Dr. Ambedkar on television and in cinema, and learning about his ideals apart from the kind of literature in the framework of the books which was available as well. So, we find that when we talk about films, when we talk about cinema, that how the films which depicted Dr. B.R. Ambedkar from a historical perspective and analyzed in an appropriate context as well. So, we see that how the social significance of culture is also understood, and the question of identity in the contemporary world, which is also very important. And Dr. Ambedkar, in a way, all through his life was fighting for this kind of a question, where he was talking about the identity of the people, those who were subjugated, in that sense, that how that identity was important. And we also find that such kind of questions, they also in a way open new avenues for cinematic research as well. And we find that nowadays we talk about the utility basis of every branch of knowledge, and how cinema, for that matter research for that matter, is witnessing more application of an interdisciplinary approach. So in this interdisciplinary approach, we find that how various subjects for that matter, or various disciplines for that matter, how they also in a way interact with each other. And we find that when you talk about this kind of interdisciplinarity, where we see that various disciplines like history, sociology, political science, economics, how all of them, psychology for that matter, all of them, how they are related to each other. And we just cannot compartmentalize them in one particular way. So in this sense, we find that various ideas of Dr. Ambedkar, when they are being, because he was writing from various perspectives, he was not only he not only established political parties, but he was talking about talking or writing from the framework of the economic ideas. He was also talking in the framework of the social justice. So how we find that when you talk about films during this time, the socio-economic and political realities of that particular period are also shown through cinema. And cinema also gets influenced by these kinds of socio-economic political realities which are there in the society. And we find that this kind of a realization in a way forced the various scholars, those who are in the different disciplines, whether historians or sociologists or political scientists, to conduct some kind of research on the films to understand the socio-economic, political and cultural realities through cinema. And that is why we find that in various universities of India, there is some kind of a thrust nowadays to understand the kind of realities which are existing in the society through the medium of films. So in that way, we find that how Dr. Ambedkar's commitment, which was there to the Indian political and socio-economic reality, and this kind of commitment which he exhibited could also be examined through cinema as well. And we find that many of the films which were made on Dr. Ambedkar, they also played an important role in the framework of that, how they also inspired other filmmakers to incorporate those ideas which are relevant to the society. And we find that over a period of time, Indian society also realized the importance of the ideas of Dr. Ambedkar, and how his photo was introduced in the central lobby of the Parliament on 12th April 1990. And posthumously in 1991, he was also awarded the highest non-military honor, the Bharat Ratna. So we find that such kind of recognition, though it came a bit late, which should have come much earlier, but nevertheless we find that it came in 1990, in 1991 thereafter. And the contribution of Dr. Ambedkar to the constitution and the writing of the constitution and the ideas which he incorporated in the constitution is very well known. And when we go to the background of Dr. Ambedkar, that how he was a student at the Columbia University from 1913 to 1916 through a scholarship from the High Highness Sayaji Rao Gaikwad III of the Baroda state, who in a way financed his education there. And we find that some of the films, they have tried to portray his persona on the celluloid, as well as his ideas concerning Buddhism as well as social justice. So we find that how the study through cinema is relevant, as scholars like Mark Ferro have treated films as both a source as well as an agent of history. And we find that when you talk about cinema as a source of history, how films they portray the relationships with the social orders that produce and consume it, and the social cycles which are associated with the making. And when we talk about cinema as an agent of history, we see that how it depicts and promote particular values, principles and attitudes in given cultures. So how cinema can be used in that sense as an agent of history or as a source of history, and we find that such a kind of an idea in the framework of being as a source and as an agent of history was being talked about by Mark Farrow, and it had some kind of uh, important contribution in that sense that nowadays we talk about the various sources of history, and oral sources, they are also being talked about in that particular framework where we find that history is being written. So cinema, which is a documented source in that sense, so why cinema should not be used as a source of historical inquiry, where we find that the way it was being documented during that particular period, so we can come to know about the various aspects of that particular society through the prism of cinema. And we find that how the social issue of caste, the way it was being tied to the political issue of democracy. In this particular framework, Dr. Ambedkar elevated the caste question from the social low to the political high. So when we see that by tying the social issue of caste to the political issue of democracy, the way Dr. Ambedkar talked about this idea and how this idea was being elevated as well. And when we talk about the various kinds of ideas and the various kinds of issues which he took up, then he believed that the social change was the sole means to achieve this end. So he in a way argued that how the ideas of social justice and social equality would only come when we bring about the social change, and social change definitely was an important factor, and it is also some kind of a slow process as well. But we find that through legislation, when legislation is there, then there is a kind of a legal binding on the people, those who are in the executive, to enforce the kind of laws which are there in the society. So this kind of a social change, legislation could be one of the things which can bring about the social change, apart from the kind of awareness which was to be created. And we find that filmmakers like Sudhakar Wagmare's film Bhim Garjana, the first film which was made on Dr. Ambedkar, and it deals with Ambedkar's childhood years which shaped his thoughts and beliefs. So we find that this particular film was dealing with initially with the childhood years of Dr. Ambedkar and the kind of inspiration which his childhood provided him to become the kind of person he became. And we also see that the film also conveys his perception of India's future and his principles and vision while drafting the Indian constitution. Apart from that, there were other films like Balak Ambedkar, directed by Basavaraj Keshthur, which focuses on Ambedkar's childhood, while Parapalli Bharat's Dr. Ambedkar focuses on his life. So we find that some of the filmmakers also they brought Dr. Ambedkar to the forefront of the filmmaking, when we find that they made films which were dealing with his life, which were dealing with his ideas. And one of the political plays, Singhasan, which was in Marathi, which was in 1979, Jabbar Patel may have been the first filmmaker to use portraits of Dr. Ambedkar. And we find later a large picture of Dr. Ambedkar on walls of Ismata Patil's office in 1982's film Umbartha, which was about a woman's ashram. So we find that how some of the filmmakers directly or indirectly were using Dr. Ambedkar in the films. And we also find that how Dr. Ambedkar had a cameo in Patel's tale of intercaste love in the film called Mukta, which was made in 1994. So we see that some of the filmmakers, they got inspired with the ideals of Dr. Ambedkar, and over a period of time we find that Dr. Ambedkar got some kind of a mention, or directly films were based on his life, some kind of biopics in that sense they were being made. And scholars like Thorat, they have talked about Dr. Baba Sahab Ambedkar's The Untold Truth, a film which was made by Jabbar Patel in the year 2000, and he says that it was an admirable effort. But this film is arguably unsuccessful in drawing out Ambedkar's idealistic personality as a political figure who had a clear philosophy and program aiming to elevate the Dalits and other marginalized groups on social and economic levels. So, Thorat has in a way criticized this particular film, that it was not able to bring about the kind of nuances which were associated with the life of Dr. Ambedkar, and how his idealistic personality could not be portrayed in the manner, the way it was being shown in the film. And we find that how, by depicting only the popular Ambedkar, Jabbar Patel lost a chance to fill a void in the documentation of Ambedkar's life. So, Thorat in a way continues with his ideas, that how Jabbar Patel could have done a much better job in terms of the documentation of Dr. Ambedkar's life. And we also find that Dr. Thorat in a way also in a way says that how the film ignores Ambedkar's contribution to the creation of post-war economic policies and his leadership of the working class. So, some of these things which could have been the part of this particular film, they could not become part, and how Thorat has in a way criticized that kind of a portrayal, that more things could have been added. And we also see that Dr. Ambedkar's ideas, they were also taken up by some of the parties in the later times, and how these parties became relevant from the point of view of talking about the ideals of Dr. Ambedkar. In that context, when we see the political scenario, then Kashiram's Bahujan Samaj Party BSP emerged as a potent political force or power in the 1980s, mainly in North India, and he was also attracted to the Ambedkarite politics, and we find they had Ambedkar's statues built at various locations, though the BSP did not officially assume power till a while later. And we find that how BSP's influence it grew, and how Ambedkar also found a place in Hindi cinema, and we find that there was a film called Aakhir Kyon in 1985, which featured Rajesh Khanna and Smita Patil, and it may have been the first major movie to show this. A picture of Dr. Ambedkar hangs over Smita Patil's office chair in her cabin at the government-run Doordarshan network. So, we find that how Dr. Ambedkar's portrait or picture was shown in this particular film, and it was one of the first films, rather first major movie in that sense, where you find this kind of a placement of a picture or a portrait. And we also see that apart from the feature films which were made on Dr. Ambedkar, there were others like some TV series, etc. They were also being made. Doordarshan, in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, they made Hindi, they in a way telecasted or broadcasted Hindi television series on Ambedkar's life called Special Feature on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the year 1992 and the 93. And we also find that how interestingly, when you see Richard Attenborough's film Gandhi had no mention of Dr. Ambedkar. So, we find that some of the films which were made and which had some kind of a, which could have some kind of a mention of Dr. Ambedkar, they also did not do it, as was evident with Gandhi, which was made by Richard Attenborough. And apart from that, in recent times, we find that there have been several films. For example, Jai Bhim, which is a realistic, brutal depiction of a police violence that irreversibly changes the life of a happy tribal couple in Tamil Nadu, and this film came in the year 2021. And the film title is a play on the catchphrase chanted by Dr. Ambedkar's supporters. And so this particular film was based on a real event from 1993, including a lawsuit argued by Justice K. Chandru when he was an advocate. And Chandru, the film's protagonist, is shown to be inspired by Dr. Ambedkar. So we find that some of the films which have been made in the later times, as the example of Jai Bhim is there, and how this particular film was talking about the kind of violence of the police on a tribal couple. And we also find that the people, those who are ready to fight for this couple, and in that case Justice K. Chandru, later he became a justice, before that he was an advocate, and how who was inspired by the ideals of Dr. Ambedkar, and he was the one who in a way supported the couple in a certain manner. And apart from that, we also find Prakash Narayan Jadhav's film Bal Bhimrao, which was made in 2018, and how it shows Ambedkar's younger years, how his thinking was shaped from an early age, and how the circumstances of his upbringing helped him become a brilliant Dalit leader. So we find that how some of the other filmmakers, they were also trying to talk about Dr. Ambedkar's life, and how his thinking was also very important from the framework that from an early age he was able to in a way shape his ideas. And we could also see that how his upbringing helped him become a brilliant leader in that sense. And we also find that he was ready to fight for his own cause and for the cause of others, and the ideas of social justice and social equality were very dear to him. And we also find that how Ambedkar believed that the caste disparities, poverty and illiteracy were the main threats to democracy, and he in a way opposed the social class framework in his origination of a majority rule system, because in a class structure there is, from one viewpoint, oppression, vanity, pride, egotism, voracity, childishness, and on the other we find frailty, destitution, corruption, loss of freedom, confidence, autonomy, poise and dignity. So we find that how Ambedkar believed, and he realized as well, that how caste disparities and the poverty of the people, they were the main threats to democracy, and how people, if they will be literate, then they will be able to ameliorate their condition. So illiteracy was also one of the factors in the viewpoint of Dr. Ambedkar, where he felt that people would not be able to in a way improve their life. And we also find that any kind of a class structure was also not acceptable to him, because he in a way was also critical of the various kinds of oppression, vanity or pride which was being shown by a particular class. And he on the other hand felt that how the people, those who have been in a way subjugated in one or the other way, they should have some kind of a confidence or the kind of dignity which is required for them. So he talked about the freedom of the people, those who have been denied freedom in a certain manner. He was talking in the framework of the autonomy of these people. He was talking in the framework of the kind of dignity which these people should have. So his ideas, they were very relevant from the point of view that how change should come in the society. So we will talk further about the ideas of cinema which are there in the framework of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and how he was portrayed in the films in our next lecture. Thank you very much.